Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress, Kentucky. We have got a wonderful episode for you today. First, we're going to cover the news of the week. Got a few items from our governor, as well as forever pollution issues, which are plaguing the Ohio River, and what can be done about those forever pollution issues. Then we're going to be joined by the 2022 Teacher of the Year from Mount Sterling, Willie Carver Jr. We're going to talk with him about how things are in schools right now, his work on campus, including starting the first Gay-Straight Alliance in Montgomery County. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with our call to action and our events calendar. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the tide of bad politics and policy from Frankfurt. From corrupt corporate handouts to efforts to end vaccine or mask mandates, we need help to stand effectively against the GOP super duper majority. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky. It's easy. Just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you spend time on social media. Just make sure to like, share, and comment on our content. If you like what you're hearing on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up. You can do it right now. If you're watching the show, give us a thumbs up. Leave us a review. Share out the show. Do everything you can to help share the good news, the kernels of truth. All right, so we are going to check in with tonight's introductory co-host. We might be joined by another co-host later, but we're going to let you know who we are, where we are, and what our protest sign says this evening. Because, folks, as you know, this is not the Rachel Maddow show. We're not a bunch of talking heads on the internet. It's a digital demonstration for a better Kentucky, for a better Commonwealth. So don't show up to the protest without a protest sign. What's your protest sign say? You can put it in the chat, put it in the comments. And if it's a good one, we can even share it on the screen because we now have the technology to do that crazy stuff. So I'm Aaron. I am coming to you from Childsburg, a lovely community, very close to the urban growth boundary in Lexington. And my sign says, the kids are all right. It's the parents I'm worried about. And that's my sign for tonight, in keeping with the fact we'll be talking to Willie Carver, Kentucky Teacher of the Year 2022 in just a few. Nate, you there?
In a little bit late, but hopefully loud and clear. And I have to say, I did like that sign. That's and of course, you know what you're talking about since you yourself are a parent.
Got a couple kids running around, and they're mostly okay. Hopefully, you won't see any of them tonight, but who knows? You never know.
The vagaries of excitement of live broadcasting. So, hey, folks, this is Nate Orshan coming live and direct from kitchen my home here in lovely South Frankfurt. In Franklin County. And tonight, I guess it's a little bit of a long sign, but, a strong sign. Only a treason weasel doesn't pay government debt that he created. Mitch, please. So obviously, debt
Nice.
ceiling. Come on, Senator McConnell. Get on the side with the angels.
The angels. They wouldn't know, if he tried to get on the side of the angels, they wouldn't be having it. That's my hunch. I don't think
wouldn't last very long.
Like, no, you stay there, buddy. We know what you're up to. Just kidding. It would be great if he did the right thing. So, of course, a lot of things he's messing around with. Look at that. Janie's got a sign. Her sign says boycott Facebook, just not on Wednesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. Yeah, it is unfortunate that this horrible corporation has become the town square. It is really problematic. If you want to get to YouTube, we're also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook right now. So pick your poison, because literally they're both poison. And if you just follow, if you follow the links they suggest, 25 clicks, you will be a white supremacist. So, or something like that. Why are you laughing about that white supremacy, Nate? It's not funny stuff.
I was wondering what my problem was, after half an hour on YouTube, and suddenly I'm on eBay looking for old swastikas and stuff.
It all makes sense now. It's the algorithms, damn it. All right, so let's talk about the news of the week, because we had some interesting stuff happen this week. First one I'm going to cover is what is going on with our governor. The big news of this past week is that he's following up his enormous Ford SK battery plant announcement with the news that he is officially running for re-election. He has filed the paperwork. He's gonna go it again, and that's God willing, we will have another term of Andy Beshear at the helm of our Commonwealth. That said, the Ford announcement, we mentioned it before. It is enormous. It is the largest kind of single investment in our state that we've seen. It tops the Toyota announcement, which everyone talks about how that just changed the state. The other thing that I will say about Toyota v. Ford, Ford is way friendlier to labor than Toyota is. If you've talked to people that work out at the Toyota world, they're not unionized. Most of them are temps, like their long-term jobs are managed through a temp agency. So Toyota doesn't actually have to give them the standard benefits for their actual employees. It's really a bit of a train wreck in terms of labor rights. So I'm very hopeful that whatever happens there in that area, that it is kind of a labor boon. We know there'll be a lot of jobs. We know there'll be good paying jobs for sure, but there'll be better paying jobs with the unionized jobs. So that's one thing that we're looking for. The other thing I'm going to look for in this Ford announcement is just, I'm pretty sure there's some folks in the governor's administration who are splurging for some extra pricey champagne for that Ford news. I don't know if folks saw it, but Linda Blackford in the Herald Leader covered the story of Larry Hayes. Larry Hayes is the interim economic development chair for the governor, and he has some property investments just down the road from the Blue Oval SK battery plants in Glendale, Kentucky. He owns 8 undeveloped acres as well as some tract housing that he and a partner built. His partner is actually former Secretary of Transportation, so a couple of government insiders, successful businessmen, and Hayes has owned that land for quite a while, well before Ford was ever considering building battery plants, right? But Hayes was the economic development chair under Steve Beshear, and that administration purchased the land around the same time the state planned it was going after a Hyundai plant. So this is, that Hyundai plant didn't happen. So the land stood vacant. The states owned it for quite a while, offering it up for other economic development opportunities. But this is not a good look for Hayes, right? And it's not a good look for Andy, who I think rather enjoys his kind of semi-dorky, squeaky clean image. And that's what I want for my governor. I want a squeaky clean, beyond reproach, no hint of corruption. Because, if there's a hint of corruption, the right-wing nut jobs in our state will make it, like it's true he's corrupt, right? That's what they will do. But I'm very concerned that this Hayes thing doesn't really look good, and it's something that we would like to see addressed, really. So, one thing that Linda Blackford does mention in this story, or in her column writing this up, she mentions that it's also bad, which is never, when you're comparing bad on either sides of the aisle, that's not a good look for anyone. But, the former governor, his economic development chair is now the CEO of the new aluminum industry. I think Unity Aluminum is what they're calling it. So that failed, Russian project there where Russian investments were made to match state investments in aluminum plant. The folks who Matt Bevin's administration that thought that was a great idea, that guy is now the CEO of the company. So if we're ranking corruption, that seems worse than an 8-acre investment that's probably gonna get more valuable because of Ford. But what I will say is that not a good look, should be addressed. I hope that Andy does. If the guy's the interim economic development chair, maybe we could just get a new one who doesn't own any land close to any potential economic development sites. Anyway, one element of Andy's big announcement, though, that he's running for re-election, he brought in some new leadership at the KDP, and a friend of the show, in fact, our second ever guest back when we called this show Moscow Mitch Monday, Mary Nishikamuda, who's been the
Yay!
executive director with KDP, she has returned to the private sector after 4+ years of leading the staff over there at the KDP. She took the party through a successful governor's campaign. Clearly, she was not really at the helm of the Senate race that was less successful, but she did, I think, a great job in a very challenging, but ultimately helpful reorganization process to elect new party leadership from the grassroots precinct level on up. So I think kudos to Mary for her work. The new ED is the governor's former deputy press secretary, Sebastian Kitchen. He is a former reporter. He was the former comms person for Julian Castro's White House run. He was comms for Bill Nelson's campaign in Florida and Doug Jones' campaign in Alabama. So I'm not, whoever's that's 3 losing races in a row there. Although I guess he worked with Doug Jones when Doug Jones won that crazy runoff against the judge, but could not hold on to the seat there. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on in Beshear world right now. Some amazing highs, some nagging questions, and a shakeup there in the entity that's going to help run his campaign, which of course, it's a little ways off, but we'll obviously be watching it very closely. Nate, what do you think about that mix of news?
That mix of news, something borrowed, something blue. No, about the whole, uh, it's tough because you always want to see progressive politicians that you support. You want them to conduct themselves beyond reproach, right? And yet, politics and political service being what it is, it's almost inevitable that any governor is going to have some problematic people serving in the executive branch. And that's what Larry Hayes is, as far as this apparent conflict of interest over holding property that's just a stone's throw away from this new Hardin County battery plant that's supposed to be built. And I'm a fan of Governor Beshear, so I'm just going to keep hoping that the net positives of his first term in office, including vigorous and ethical attempts to keep us all safer during the first year of the pandemic. This year has been a bit of a wash, thanks to the legislature. And now this new mega project coming online in the near future. I hope that all his positive leadership will be tough enough to counter the slew of bad faith attacks that are being launched against him now and are just going to get stronger and stronger as we get closer to Election Day, which is, 2 years away. So we have some time, but I worry that even something bad like this could resonate long term. So
yeah, I think we're goldfish in a fishbowl generally. I don't think anyone's going to remember this. They will try to make some hay of it, likely. But again, I think it's just one of those things that people who are paying attention can get a little disillusioned, and that's not what you want, because the people who are paying attention, those folks you want in the trenches for you when push comes to shove, and in 2 years there'll be a lot of shoving for sure. And I think that Larry Hayes is. I'm sure he's a great guy. He's just one of those guys. I'm sure there wasn't like thumb on the scales, right? This is like a tract of land they've been working to get a big economic development project cited into for decades, and I'm glad they landed it now. I'm glad they landed it in the the EV industry space, because as folks know, I'm a huge proponent for that transition from internal combustion engines to EVs, and this is there's no downside to this, right? This is an amazing opportunity for our state. I will say this: I pay pretty close attention to Michigan politics as well, even though I'm a Kentucky voter, and they are pissed. Folks in Michigan are pissed they did not land these 2 battery plants or the big campus in Tennessee. So just so you know, folks, it's sometimes it's a bit zero sum when auto industry investments are made, and Michigan is not thrilled about sharing the wealth, but I'm excited about what it means for the future of the industry, what it really means for the future of our planet. Like, let's be honest, if we don't shift to EVs in a massive scale and quickly, the kids, my kids, jumping on the trampoline in the backyard, what are they going to see when they're having kids? Things aren't good now. The trends are bad. We need to see massive leadership to make, the pushback against science-based vaccines has been horrible. All it takes is us like rolling up our sleeves and getting a shot, and our nation couldn't come together around that. The idea that we can come together around the massive challenges of climate change. I mean, we can't just follow along. We can't follow along, let corporations do the work. We need to, we need to have the policy to force the corporations to do the right thing, because not every corporation sees that clean energy boon as worth the energy, their energy, and their divestment of existing kind of product lines and the status quo for their industry. So, I mean, that's one thing. If we want to, like, I'm not knocking Governor Beshear, for having a guy in his cabinet that's been around forever. I think this is something that should have been flagged. It should have been dealt with beforehand. He should have sold the land. But what I will knock Governor Beshear for is that he's nowhere on climate change. He thinks like economic activity is the only. He's gonna, I'm sure, tout this as his massive, climate change victories, that we've got a battery plant in Kentucky, which we still aren't doing anything to control emissions. We aren't doing anything to, as a state, incentivize the actual transition to EVs. We're more than happy to build them here, but they're all going to be sold in California unless we change the rules about, how we're deploying the technology. So, that's my one dig on Governor Beshear. Is I'd like to see a lot more leadership on climate change, because really, without that one getting right, there's nothing that matters. So anyway, I've rambled on too much. Really, I've been filibustering in the hopes that our wayward co-host will show up. But I think what this means, Nate, is I'm going to need to go on. If somebody in our crew is going to need to talk about story 2.
That would be me. That would
you
be
going to do it?
Yeah. Right. Well, it is funny too, because we're starting off with a story about this new economic development, an industrial site, a huge one, but we're ending up our news of the week with a story about sort of the bad things that can happen from industrialization, especially if people aren't paying attention to public safety. So this is about a class of chemicals, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. PFASs are this class of contaminants, and they're known as forever chemicals. Why? Well, they just don't break down in nature. And it's this family of thousands of compounds that are used in this diverse range of products. You've probably got some in your house right now. You can find them on nonstick pans, firefighting foam, waterproof coatings, anybody, even fast food wrappers. Who's had fast food in the past week? So the problem with these is that they're being increasingly linked to birth defects and cancers like kidney cancer and testicular cancer, even damage to the liver, damage to the immune system, the thyroid gland. And this is all according to the EPA, the federal EPA, US EPA. So to bring this all back to our home here in Kentucky, the Kentucky Division of Water confirmed just 2 years ago, 2019, the study called the Evaluation of Kentucky Community Drinking Water in Per and Polyfluoroalkyl Substances. It's a mouthful. They confirmed that there was presence of these chemicals in the 41 out of 81 water treatment plants across the state. But so far, little action has been taken. Now, there is some money in President Biden's budget for the EPA, and they had a line item for $75 million for toxicity studies for PFASs. And the Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commission is working to do more testing for PFASs. I think I'm not pronouncing that correctly, PFASs. I'm going to call them PFASs from here on out. Well, to make it even more local, let's take a look at Henderson, Kentucky, way over on the western side of the state. So this past August, WKU reported that, quote, high levels of PFAS chemicals have contaminated a plastics recycling company in Henderson, Kentucky, which, again, western Kentucky, spreading through the air and water and likely contaminating a creek that flows into where? The Ohio River. They go on to say that the company, Shamrock Technologies Incorporated, notified state regulators about the problem after hiring a consultant to screen for the pollution 3 years ago. The Shamrock is just the most recent discovery of PFAS. They've also been found in Louisville's drinking water. They've been found in, over, as we said, in over half the water systems that have been tested. So it's one of these sad things that there's just inadequate regulation. I took a look at the federal EPA's own fact sheet about their health advisories for two kinds of PFAS, PFOA and PFOS in drinking water. And the good news, such as it is that EPA says that some of these PFAS sources have been voluntarily phasing out production. But the emphasis here is on the word voluntarily, i.e., there doesn't seem to be much except the occasional bout of conscience or desire for better PR on the part of these manufacturers and industrial users of PFAS chemicals to make them curb their use or clean up after themselves. And often there's apparently nothing more on the federal level other than this stern, we really don't think you should be using these chemicals. So shouldn't the Kentucky EPA be stepping up here? Well, yes. As we like to say, jump if you're feeling froggy, especially if it's due to that frog having a leg tumor from exposure to too many carcinogenic chemicals. So now that we're all sufficiently scared, let's go out and get the Beshear administration to step up some action on PFASs. What do you think, Aaron? Does this ring with you?
I'm just gonna have myself a little water here and think about it a little bit more closely.
Straight from the top.
You know what? Actually, maybe I'm just gonna move right to this. I like my water treated. It has got all sorts of treatments. So what I wanted to say here is that I do think this gets to state enforcement for sure. I think clearly under the Trump administration there was zero appetite for doing the right thing for the environment. So enforcement was way down under Trump. The budgets were slashed. Now things are coming back. We heard the Biden administration put some money in specifically to look at some of these things. But yeah, we do need to see better, more proactive steps taken. They don't have a good lower threshold. Like, the limits right now are too high. Everyone, all the serious researchers think that the limits are too high for these chemicals. And other folks are actually treating for them. If you look right across the river, Cincinnati has additional treatment. This kind of, I think I'm struggling to come up with the term for it.
Reverse osmosis.
It's kind of it's like activated charcoal. It's like kind of simple, right?
Oh, wow.
But it takes this stuff out. Maybe not Gen X, which is another PFAS, but what we do know is that the industries are responsible for it. It's not something that's naturally occurring. We need to crack down on those industries, as you noted, Nate. A kind of vague, at some point we will transition. Our goal is to transition away from the corporations is worth nothing. You need to put some rules and regs on them, and that takes political appetite to pick fights with some of these industries, which politicians rarely have the political appetite to pick fights with industries because jobs and campaign cash. But thanks for sharing that story. It's a really important one. I'm glad we covered it. I did want to also just touch base on a story that we'd mentioned last week. It was kind of one of our big stories was, and Nate mentioned it earlier in his sign. So Mitch McConnell and his just incredibly reckless efforts to filibuster Democratic efforts to increase the debt ceiling. It seems like things are heading in the right direction. I think Mitch had acknowledged that maybe he would do a 2-month extension of the debt limit. Because, what we know about Mitch is he really likes holiday government shutdowns. He thinks everyone should celebrate the holidays by not having a paycheck, or, the VA folks from the VA rely on the VA shouldn't get their medicine, or, Social Security folks shouldn't get their checks. So apparently that's what Mitch really wants is a very Scrooge-like Christmas, not the Scrooge at the end of the story, but the early Scrooge. But what I do know is that indication, that kind of blink, is a clear sign that he's getting starting to get some pressure. Maybe the billionaires who have his phone number on speed dial are like, hey, we can't tank the economy, jerk. But what I also do know is that didn't happen until Schumer and friends, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, started talking about filibustering or filibuster reform. So that's really, I think, important. That kind of nuclear option, which it's hard to get Manchin to go along with it. But I think for something as like clearly specific and critical as the debt ceiling, they'd be fools not to. So, and it's, in my eyes, that's the camel's nose under the filibuster reform tent, is getting in for something like that. And like, it's also critical. Voting rights are critical. So let's do something about that.
Here.
Right. So anything from you on that one, Nate?
No, just, ditto. And, there's only so much pressure that we can put on Mitch McConnell, but it's another reminder that it still is, even though it's like sort of like spitting into a tornado, it's worth calling the office and just registering your feelings and saying, you know what, we really need to take care of the debt ceiling and honor the debts that you yourself supported just a mere 4 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. That his flip-flop is impressive. And I truly believe, Jen Psaki, amazing press secretary for the White House, showed a very clear graph of how much U.S. debt was increased under Trump and how much it was increased under Biden. And it was like, oh, so the Republicans just won't pay for all the spending they enabled. That's really what it comes down to. They're dashing and dining, and they're all horrible, and they think we're idiots. Yeah. So let's prove them that we're not. Prove to them that we're not. Let's hold them accountable. Let's make those phone calls. I know it's like spitting into a tornado, but sometimes you just gotta get wind whipped to go. And they're very polite, a little bit cocky. The little punks that answer the phone there in Mitch's office, but they're polite enough. They're not going to yell at you for disagreeing with their boss. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and call them. All right, so we are going to get on to our interview, which is super exciting. So that was our news of the week for the week. And first, before we get to our interview with Kentucky's 2022 Teacher of the Year, I want to remind folks that if you like what you hear on Kernels of Truth, please do consider supporting our efforts with a financial investment. We have got a goal of raising $1,500 for our current organizing project. We're still less than 20% of the way there. So if you want to help turn Kentucky purple, we have got just 400 and maybe 6 days until we have a chance to fire Rand Paul and celebrate at his retirement party. If you want to help make that possible, please make a donation right now. Go hit us up on ActBlue. It's secure. It's not tax deductible because it's political activity, but we'd still love to have your support. So go ahead, make a donation. All right. It doesn't have to be huge. Anything, $5, $10, $15, $25, $5,000, whatever you can do is appreciated. All right. So we are now going to, though, speak with Willie Carver Jr., who came to us from one of our wonderful volunteers who is in Montgomery County and ran across Willie and his great work. But Willie, thank you so much for joining us there in. I mean, I don't know if you're in Montgomery. You work in Montgomery County.
Also live in Montgomery. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. So, Kentucky's AFT affiliate, 120 Strong, has been keeping tabs on educator and school staff deaths, and I believe that our state has now hit 55 tragic losses, and that seems to me like a really tough time to be a teacher. I mean, you guys are on the front lines day in and day out. I know that rural communities have been really hard in this most recent, kind of wave of the pandemic. The Daily Yonder did an amazing story about the hospital that a lot of folks in, I think, Mount Sterling would use, and it just really was eye-opening to what stuff's going on out there. I just want to check in with you. How are things right now? How are you feeling? How are your students doing? What's happening?
Well, let's see. First off, any opinions I express are my own and those of most of my friends. Second of all, the virtual majority of those in education. we're hanging in there. It is, in my 15 years, the single hardest time it's ever been. Even hearing that the number was 55, I try to keep up with the number to remind students. I think it's really easy for us to just grow accustomed to this sort of new normal and to forget these are real lives. So the number I've been giving was 50 when I remind them, hey, we got to wear the mask. We need to make sure, because people, real people, could get sick. But yeah, it's a hard time. It's a dangerous time. I think it's never been more politicized to do the sort of basics of caring for each other. That part is probably the hardest.
Yeah, that seems like a really challenging element of this all, right? So why would people's political viewpoints have anything to do with whether we want to care for our neighbor and help, just follow science, right?
Mhm.
I mean, CDC is not a political agency. It's not a political tool of either White House.
Mhm.
And it just seems so very odd to me that, that has become the issue, is like, well, what side of this are you on? There's no sides in, a pandemic.
Right.
But thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I know it's been rough on teachers, but I guess one additional kind of thing that came up across my radar was, as we were talking about having you on, was the work that you're doing, supporting your students there in Montgomery County. It's my understanding you helped their efforts to launch the first student gay straight alliance in Montgomery County. What led you to support your students in that way? I cannot imagine it was a popular move necessarily with some parents to kind of encourage kids to be themselves and support each other.
I almost wonder at this point, what is a popular move with parents?
Right. Oh my goodness.
You bring up a good point about sort of a question I ask myself a lot nowadays is, what is political? What does that word really mean? I think traditionally we might mean two viewpoints on how to solve a problem, but now if you have one half the country denying that a problem exists or denying that facts exist, then suddenly reality is politicized. So yeah, it wasn't popular. I will say there was a group in the 90s. I want to give credit to Miss Dina Amberg. Obviously that you can't do that. You couldn't have done that in the schools then here. I want to give all the credit to the students, all the credit. Anything I do as a teacher is about what I would have wanted more of as a student, and mostly someone to tell me that my voice mattered, to tell me that I could do anything that I wanted to. And so when the students referenced it, I mean, a part of me was terrified that the day would come. I wasn't tenured at the time. And I knew it would be a battle. And so when they said, hey, why don't we have a straight alliance? The first year it was a great group, open light, but I made it a big group that sort of covered all kinds of different perspectives. We didn't even have the word in the name or in our description, LGBT, sort of diverse perspectives or something. And the kids called me out on it. One thing that I love about being a teacher, and what I love specifically about high school, is their sense of justice is dynamic. And so they said to me, I feel like you're erasing us. And it just like cut into my soul. So I said, all right, let's do it. Let's make this group. And luckily, we've mainly, there are the meetings you're going to have as a teacher over anything, but the group has soared. I think at our highest meeting counts, we have 35 students in those meetings. It's amazing to see the bravery of these kids who are willing to, and not just have a space, which was what I sort of would have assumed they would have wanted, but they spoke pretty passionately this year about education, about wanting to educate other people. They're wanting to meet with the various departments at the school and kind of talk to the departments about sort of what they see as challenges. Last year, they invited Eric Marcus, who is the probably nation's foremost LGBT historian, to come speak at our school. They said, wouldn't it be crazy? And I was like, why would it be crazy? You deserve nice things as much as anyone else. Let's ride him. Let's see if he'll do it. And he agreed. Then COVID quarantine, so it didn't get to happen. But it's a beautiful and fresh reminder that there's lots of good things happening, despite a lot of the problems.
That's awesome. thinking about folks who can kind of share a perspective that's valuable with your kids. I just finished Southernmost. Silas, we had Silas House on the show a couple weeks ago, and I'm always so impressed with like TV hosts are like, oh, I just read your book and I want to refer to it, right? So I'm like, I can do that. I'm gonna get Silas's book and I'm gonna read it, and I just I'm a busy guy. I did not have a chance to read the full book, but once I like really started it, I could not put it down. And I don't know if you've read it, Willie, but it was just So Silas, who can be quite giving with his time, might be a perspective that you guys should reach out to.
I agree. And we've been in the talks, and some of us went to see a play. I think it was a couple of years ago that he did. Morehead State University put on one of his plays. But to sort of tie these together, I think when I think about what a perspective is, and this idea that in politics, especially now, there's just two sides. It's just such a narrow binary view to see the world. I've been working with another teacher at Montgomery County High School, Abby Thomas, and we're really looking at the way we teach writing. I mean, the truth is the standard setup is, here is a problem. Here are two solutions. Pick one. And by the time the students get to school, I think they've already heard from their family members which solution they're supposed to have. So we've really been pushing this invent a solution, come up with something that has both sides sort of intellectualized, at least, whether or not you completely agree or disagree. I love introducing new voices because it helps us see things in a way we've never seen them before. And I think that's severely lacking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's not lock kids into the way their parents view the world, right? It's not it's not a binary option. There's lots of color there. It's not black and white necessarily. Although I'm, strong supporter of science being science and math being math. But hey, I want to see if my friend Nate had a question for you.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the program again, and congratulations on the great honor. I wonder if I might ask you a little bit about charter schools. And the reason I ask is that here in Frankfurt, our local paper, the State Journal, not infrequently runs these op-eds sort of promoting charter schools, and so I guess what I was interested in is knowing if you were asked to give advice to someone who's going to publish their own editorial in the State Journal about charter schools, what would you hope would be communicated to your fellow Kentuckians about charter schools and their relationship to public education and public education resources? And objection, Your Honor, counsel is leading the witness.
Well, the first thing I would say is, my any expertise that I even claim to have in education comes from the ground up. My training is in the subjects we study in school, much less so, and probably to a fault of the way we organize education, than in terms of sort of systemic and structural concerns. What I do know is this: public schools are severely under-resourced. We can't do what we're asked to do. We couldn't do what we were asked to do 3 years ago. And now we're being asked to do more than we've ever been asked to do. And we're doing what's research-based. We're doing what the best science tells us to do. We're looking at studies that help us approach questions of difficulties that our students might be facing, questions of curriculum, questions of behavior approaches, et cetera. So I think my question always is, what exactly is someone hoping to get if they're wanting to leave public education as we sort of know it? Is there some research I haven't heard of that's supposed to be better? I think is always my thinking. What exactly is this? Is the charter school providing that we're not providing? And if it's something that's good, why aren't we? And again, I'm not saying that there aren't nice things that might be happening, but what I do know is when we lose resources for the public school, we're losing resources that everyone needs, in my opinion. And my thought would always be that, what are you actually gaining? And I think a lot of preliminary research that I've done into the topic tends to be one about which students are sitting beside of which students, who some parents want their kids to be near or not be near. And I don't think that's good for our democracy if we're really just pulling students away from each other, if we're hoping to build a society.
That's great. Just a note in the comment. You are an icon, sir. Apparently, you are such an icon, is what has been made in the. There we go.
An icon.
So Courtney Blocker, I'm excited, to that. And I don't really, I'll be honest, I don't really know how Teacher of the Year gets selected. My hunch is the kids don't vote, is I think probably what happens. Kids don't vote. How does it happen, sir? What was the process? Was there a swimsuit, competition, or how did this happen?
All right, the truth of this is sort of embarrassing. I have no idea. I got an email saying you've been nominated for Teacher of the Year. That process is completely anonymized, so I don't know who nominated me. It tends to be either administrators or other colleagues in the system.
I'd look at Courtney Blocker if I were you.
It could be that Courtney Blocker. And there's a pretty lengthy application with lots of essays and videos, and then you do some sample talking, and it is almost entirely former Kentucky Teachers of the Year who make the determination of who's going to be the current Teacher of the Year. I think they start with a few thousand applications, and then from there they get down to a couple of hundred. And then when they get to this top, so again, I didn't know any of this stuff until I won. When they get to the top 20, they kind of say, they send you are called a Kentucky Teacher of Abilene Scholar. And so I get this email that says I was a Kentucky Teacher of Abilene Scholar. And I said, we were on our way to on vacation. And I said to my husband, what is this? And he said, I don't know. And I said, is it a scam? I don't remember. So I deleted the email. And then
don't click it. Don't click it.
And then was contacted later. I think there was even a you need to submit your social in case you win. And I was like, this.
That sounds super shady. That sounds super shady.
Yeah. But the people who work at the Kentucky Department of Education, Donna Melton, for example, who are over this, are really kind, really willing to work with the candidates. And so she was reaching out to me personally and going, do you want me to call you? So you know this is real. So that was sort of the process.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure it was Courtney Blocker that nominated you.
I have a good hunch on
that. She's now scanning the universe for new things to nominate you for, which is good.
Best live cast.
You did have a nomination, so we want to talk to you after the show about some things you could do. But what I want to hear is, are the kids all right? Are you think they're getting through this okay? It seems like you just have a lot on your plate. I got to imagine that people are getting sick, that you have to step up and step in to be able to cover for folks and things of that nature. So it just seems like they're asking you to do more and more. How are you? The
kids are okay.
Yeah.
But they deserve so much more than we're giving them. And if the kids are okay, there's the prequel to this statement. It is because of the teachers. The reality of the situation is, when you have absences, you don't have coverage. So you're combining multiple groups into one classroom. When you've got 35 students, say, in a given classroom, and a given 8 of them are out quarantined on a given day or out sick on a given day, obviously no one's going to be holding that against them. I don't think I can in good conscience require them to do work when they're not in the classroom, because I don't know their situations at home. They don't have those resources. And so I'm basically trying to organize for 35 people at once, and the people in the room, and cover my colleagues who aren't there. It is a lot. And I'm so proud of my profession for the way that we've stepped up and tried to come up with solutions for these issues. And at the end of the day, there is no way in any profession that quality isn't going to drop when you're pulling people that much. I would love to give feedback to every student every day in writing. I would love to get real quality short answer assessments, but I'm resorting to multiple choice in situations where I wouldn't have done it before. I'm trying to be honest. I wish it weren't. And I think this is one of those times when politicizing education, it harms the child more than anyone else. The teacher in the classroom is frazzled. The teacher in the classroom is demoralized. Someone said it really well earlier tonight, that our usual peppy cheerleaders are just browbeaten. And I think that's because we're giving everything we can in those classrooms for a sense of normalcy. But for every group out there that tries to politicize us being safe, or even when we try to do something, I know, for example, a lot of school districts face this similar issue, that when the schools closed for a day, so that all the teachers could get vaccinated, that was met with lots of complaints in some groups that, oh, these special teachers. But the reality of the situation is your kids need to be safe, is what I want to say to those groups. And, if we have a third of the staff or a fourth of the staff that can't make it into the classroom, that creates unsafe scenarios. And so I'm happy with the way the state has stepped up. I'm happy with in those particular situations when they were able to give them. But the kids are okay. My question is it sustainable? My question is, what is the state going to be doing to make sure this doesn't become the status quo? Because that tends to be what happens. They up our capacity from 26 to 30, and suddenly 30 is the new normal. Then 35 is the new normal. I don't think anyone can expect that we're going to have teachers who are willing to stay, especially teachers who know they can do other things. That's my real concern, because I want quality teachers. I want quality educators in the future.
Yeah, we need them. Our future depends on it. Folks like yourself, Willie. So thank you for your time in the trenches. Thank you for the work you're doing. Congratulations on the honor of being the 2022 Kentucky Teacher of the Year. And thank you so much for your time with us this evening. All right. Hey, Nate. So we're going to need to cover for our friend Kimberly, who still is not here. So do you want to do the action calendar or the close?
Oh, I'll do the close.
All right.
I'll do the close.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the action calendar. All right. So there it is. You saw it. The behind the curtain stuff we like to keep from the public, but that's what we're doing. All right. So this is really important that we send you out with, what are you going to do about the news you've heard today? How are you going to take action? Well, we've got a few different things. Progress Kentucky is a member of the Kentucky Voting Rights Coalition, organizations which are working together to ensure that previously incarcerated people reclaim their right to vote and want more citizens across our Commonwealth registered and voting in every election. They have some events coming up to put those goals into action. You can find more about their events online. Tomorrow, actually, there's the Goodwill Fall Festival that's happening in the morning, so 10 to noon. If you want to go table, you can go table for voting rights there at the Goodwill in Lexington. There's a link we will put in the chat. One additional item: vote forward and send letters to Virginia. I don't know if folks are paying attention. There's a couple of governor's races coming up very quickly. One in New Jersey, one in Virginia. The Virginia one is all about turnout. So that is a really important race and sends a really clear message across the nation. If Trump, it's like this, the guy who's running as a Republican is kind of the, offspring of Mitt Romney and Donald Trump, right? He's just like the private investment banker guy with a ton of money, Bain Capital type, and then also says a lot of Trumpy stuff because he's trying to court the Trump base. So really not a great guy. Terry McAuliffe is the Democratic nominee, and a lot of people are watching this race as a precursor to, of course, the midterms. So we worked with Vote Forward for the Georgia Senate runoff races, and that worked. They turned out a ton of voters through their handwritten letters from a voter to a voter. If you would like to help out, if you could send 5 letters by October 16th, which gives you some time, You can, next week while you're watching Kernels of Truth, you can write out some letters. Sign up online, vote for votefwd.org. All right. And then this is an issue a little closer to home, fair maps. You guys remember we had the League of Women Voters on to help inform the redistricting process through a transparent electoral district mapping project. They are doing a series of virtual town halls to explain their maps and the redistricting process. Thursday, October 14th, they've got a Frankfurt-focused town hall that's 7 to 8:30. That will be virtual. Monday, October 18th, a Louisville-focused one, virtual, 6 to 7:30. There is an in-person option, I guess, at that one, 5:30 to 7:30, with the program beginning at 6. That's at Lang House, 115 South Ewing Avenue in Louisville. On Thursday, October 21st in Lexington, a Lexington-focused virtual town hall from 7 to 8:30. Tuesday, November 2nd, Northern Kentucky, 6:30 to 8 o'clock, virtual. So for form registration, for more information and updates, please visit LWV, League of Women Voters, ky.org, or email info@lwvky.org. These links will all be in the chat. They'll also show up in the run of show, the show notes, so you can go find them at your leisure. They will be up and live, by tomorrow morning. I need to get some sleep after this. Anyway, the Kentucky Democratic Party has launched Ready to Run, which is a new training program for prospective candidates and staff envisioned to provide the building blocks to win Democratic campaigns right here in Kentucky. If you want to learn how to be a campaign staff, you want to learn how to be an effective candidate, there's a November 13th through 14th, they're going to do a training session in Louisville that may or may not be virtual. But to apply, head to the kydemocrats.org website and find out about it. Finally, and I am very hopeful that this is the last mention of this action alert. We launched a petition to urge the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure to investigate the unethical and dangerous medical advice stemming from Dr. Rand conspiracy theory Paul. We are so close to our signature goal, 500 signatures. So please go sign right now, bit.ly/investigate Dr. Paul. There's capitalization of investigate and D for doctor and P for Paul. Go ahead and click through. And if you've signed it already, share it. If you've shared it already, share it again. If you don't want everyone to know your politics, you want to share it on your Facebook page or Twitter feed, direct message the people you know share your politics. Email your friends that you know are sick of Rand Paul's lies about COVID. We need to get to 500 signatures, and we can send this on in as an official grievance. There's been some news that they don't want to go after Rand Paul. We need to put some pressure on him. We've got a few different ideas of how we're going to do it, but this petition is the number one reason, number one way. So make sure to help us get to 500 signatures, please. And that is our action events calendar.
We need some music for that too. Action events. Well,
if only we had someone who could write music.
Don't host it on my own petard. So, hey, folks, just before you go away, next week here on Kernels of Truth, we are so excited to be joined by May Suramek, the Democratic nominee for the 89th District in next month's special election. What is the 89th District? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It's parts of Madison and Laurel counties and all of Jackson County. May's got an awesome track record of community service and impressive success as a community-focused small business owner down in Berea, wonderful city. She has been endorsed by KFTC. So please tune in next week, next Wednesday at 7, right here on Kernels of Truth to hear from May and hear why she's running to represent the 89th and maybe what we can all do to help her. A little bit about us. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, that's known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement, hence the signs and everything we ask you to do. Some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. Couchfire ignites multi-camera live stream educational and commercial video production content. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Production this evening was by Annabelle Nagel. Woo! our own social media chair. Thank you so much for volunteering to help get our live stream out to the people. Annabelle, you've done a great job. And she is normally here every week, Kimberly Jones, but it makes sense to promote the Jones Report. It's Kimberly's weekly live national local news, talk, and conversation show. That's everything. It occurs every Sunday at 7 p.m. right here on Facebook, amongst other places. Co-hosted by Mike Breuer, Betsy Foster, and of course, Kimberly Cecil Jones. Oops, I dropped a surname a little earlier there. The Jones Report radio program can be found on Facebook, where at The Jones Report Radio, all one word, The Jones Report Radio. Go, you will have a good time. I guess I should also plug myself for the theme song, and you can find my website at natosongs.com. It's natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream here on Facebook, don't worry. You can always rewatch shows and see our source links either on Facebook or on YouTube. So get some good content from those sources for a change. Or if you prefer not to see me or Kimberly or Aaron, we do audio podcasts too. And our podcasts are available on Apple, on Google, on Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So that's it for October 6th, 2021, Kernels of Truth. Thank you all for supporting us and getting some good progressive vibes here in the Bluegrass. See you next week. Mwah.